she's going to log in. Yeah, she's trying to log in. Ready to go ahead? Are we ready to go?
Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, good echo. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here in Logan Lake with Minister Katrine Conroy and being here at the fire hall with first responders, not just those here in Logan Lake, but BC Wildfire Service as well. With Mayor Smith, thank you so much for having us here today. And most importantly, I want to thank Mayor Smith and those who came before her for the fire smart work that's been done by Logan Lake's community to ensure that the fires that we just experienced stopped at the line and came no further. That's a testament to the hard work of the fire service. It's a testament to those structural firefighters who came from around British Columbia to Logan Lake to protect homes, to protect property, and to protect people. For that, we are forever in their debts, not just the community of Logan Lake, but all British Columbians. Katrine and I were in Vernon last night at the largest fire center we've had in the Okanagan in recent memory. Some 470 firefighters from Quebec, from around British Columbia, New Brunswick, and other places, all focused on protecting other people they've never met before, people that, maybe we'll wait for that to land. There we go. So we're in Vernon last night, and at shift change, the end of every evening, the people of Vernon come together at the entrance to the fire center, and they cheer on the firefighters. The trucks, the structural firefighters that are coming in, hit the sirens. There's a sense of community, quite extraordinary. And to be able to sit and talk with firefighters from every corner of the province, to talk about some on their third and fourth rotation, was profoundly moving, certainly for me. I have a family, as I just said to Chief Wilson. I have 3 members of my family who are professional firefighters. I know the challenges that they face every day, but to come to an interface fire as we experienced here just outside of Logan Lake, to do the hard work, to put yourself on the line to protect people and property is quite extraordinary, and it's very powerful to see firsthand. I also had an opportunity to stop at the Okanagan Indian Band today, where there were significant structural losses. Chief Lewis and I did a survey of the community. We talked about the challenges of rebuilding. We talked about how we need to better prepare with prescribed burns, which is a traditional Indigenous way of protecting community from fire. We have raised these issues with BC Wildfire Service. We're going to be looking at every tool at our disposal going forward. You'll know that 2017 was the worst in history, 2018 just behind it, and now here we are in 2021, coming out of a year and a half of a global pandemic, coming into another horrific fire season. So we have all British Columbians have been rattled over the past 2 years by various and sundry, and these challenges are particularly acute in communities like Logan Lake and those that have been affected by the fires. We've learned a great deal from what's happened, and we need to take those learnings and put them into practice. So the budget process that we're engaged in right now for the next budget 22-23, will have at its center a commitment to making sure that we're better prepared, as best prepared as we can be for the fire seasons that are coming ahead of us. Climate change is here to stay. We need to take steps to protect communities, protect property, and protect people. And with that, I'll just ask Minister Conroy to say a few words, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Thank you, Premier, and thank you to everyone for having us here today. And I have to tell you, it's since I've been the minister, not even a year yet, but touring around this summer and seeing the devastating results of this wildfire season, one of the most, actually the most devastating in the history of the province, is certainly not only been an eye-opener, but what's been heartwarming to me is to meet everybody that's been involved and to come here to Logan Lake and see what you have done. We just flew over and saw the results of all the work that you have all done over the last, some have told me 10 years, that you've been working to make sure your community is safe. It's profound to see that. 18 years, but it shows in what we saw, what we just flew over and saw. The results of that are incredible. And as the Premier said, we want to reach out to communities right across the province to say this is a great example of what can work. So we just, we want to make sure that we're duplicating this across the province, that it's happening quickly, and that it might take a few years, but it's well worth it. So we've definitely seen the results here. And we've seen the results of the team effort of everybody that's involved. I mean, to thank the local communities, BC Wildfire Service, everybody that has been so involved in making this happen. It's just not one group or the other. It's a team effort. And I just can't thank you all enough for the work that you do and what you've done, because it shows in the results here. And it's been quite a summer, and the fire season isn't over yet, even though the weather would make you think it is. It's not, and we just have to keep up our diligence in ensuring that we can continue to keep things under control. So again, thank you to everybody. Thank you for having us here, and thank you for all the work you're doing. It's on behalf of the government, we sincerely appreciate it. So thank you.
Do you want to say something, Commissioner?
Yeah, it's definitely been a lot of long, hard days for the municipality of Logan Lake over the last little while, and it 100% is a joint effort from a lot of people. So the first thing I want to say is thank you to all of those. Every single one of them know who they are, and they know what part they played. And it couldn't have been done without a huge joint effort from everybody. So I just want to acknowledge the work that was done here on behalf of us, not just by us, but by a lot of people. Also, there was a lot of work done long even before my time by community leaders, and they're not always politicians. A lot of them are just leaders in your communities that are doing other jobs that take on pieces of the puzzle, and that's what it's been for Logan Lake. So there's been a lot of people over the course of the last 18 years that have championed different pieces of Fire Smart and what that looks like. And we today are seeing the benefit of what that can do. And we are more than happy to share our story. And we really, really want to encourage other communities to reach out, because if we can share our story and if we can make any other communities any safer than they already are, that's what we want to be doing. And I think that's what we need to be doing. There's been many, many people, and we could never even begin to thinking about naming them. But when the time came and we needed them, they were here. And it was a lot of work. And it always will be, but there's people there that can help, and you just take it off in small pieces, because that's really what it takes. So Fire Smart was happening in Logan Lake before it was actually even really invented. It was we fed up the what wildfires, or what Fire Smart looks like, even to the federal level, to help them build the Fire Smart program. So 2013, we became the first Fire Smart community in Canada. And there's a lot of people that had a part of that. So I'm so proud today to even just be here, of course. And we also want to recognize our colleagues that weren't so lucky and didn't have as good of an outcome, and just let them know that our hearts and our thoughts are with them as well. And we are considering that we were very fortunate, and others weren't. And if there's anything that we can do to be of assistance to any other communities that want to get on board and get working on Fire Smart, we're happy to help. So thank you all. We appreciate everybody. There's no words to thank people for the work that's been done. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. And again, the Fire Smart work done in Logan Lake has led the way for other British Columbia communities, and we're committed to making sure, working with BC Wildfire Service, the Ministry of Environment, and others, to ensure that the resources are there to protect communities going forward. And with that, I guess we'll go to questions.
Thank you. As a reminder to everybody on the phone line, please press *1 to enter the queue. You're limited to 1 question and 1 follow-up. First question today is in the room. John Waugh, Global News.
So for the first question is for those who unfortunately aren't as fortunate as the people here in Logan Lake. You know, many are starting to have that sense of frustration boil over because there are evacuees who have been out of their homes for a month. Yeah. Some see that their properties still seem intact and they should be able to come home. What kind of supports are you really providing those evacuees who you really are at their wits' end?
Well, we've certainly approved, I think it's $2,000 initially for those who have been on evacuation for an extended period of time. There's financial disaster assistance programs that we're constantly modifying to meet the changing circumstances that we're living in British Columbia in a climate change environment. To those that have been out of their homes for a long period of time, I understand the frustration and anger and the uncertainty. But I'm reminded of talking to Scott from Lytton last night, who I first met at the Lillooet Fire Center. He has had a home in Lytton, and it's now gone. And he told me about how that felt days after the fire at Lytton. And he told me yesterday, still fighting fires all summer long, now in Vernon, that his focus is to try and make sure that we do what we can to reduce interface fires. And that's exactly what's been happening here in Logan Lake, and that's exactly what we need to do so that we don't have extended evacuations as we've seen this summer. Critically difficult, I get that. Also at the heels of hopefully at the end of a global pandemic, this has not been ordinary days, and I know people get that, but that doesn't change their frustration, their anger, and their disappointment in not being able to go home. But I like to think about those who don't have any homes to go to, and that keeps me focused on making sure that we put in place the programs people need, and we're committed to doing that.
John, follow-up?
In terms of vaccination passports, we're already hearing from some businesses who say they have no plans to, ask for them at the door. What can the province do to enforce that this is actually done? And also want your reaction on the fact that we also found out that someone in Nanaimo is actually selling fake mask exemption cards.
Well, they won't be able to sell fake exemption cards because they don't exist. We brought forward the BC vaccination card at the request of Chambers of Commerce, the business community, the hospitality sector. This is a tool that they wanted at their disposal so that they could demonstrate to their patrons that everyone in their establishment had done everything they could to protect themselves, their families, and their community. There will be bumps along the way. This has not happened before in Canada. Quebec and Manitoba have similar programs to ours. I'm confident that other provinces will be following suit, and there are going to be glitches. People get that. Technology the technology has been developed here in BC. Internal to government, and the forgeries that you talk about may appear, but I don't believe they'll be successful. And with respect to enforcement, it's not unlike with respect to nightclubs or the hospitality sector. If they have difficulty with patrons, they call law enforcement, and that's what I would expect would happen with respect to the vaccination card as well.
Next question is from Chad Clausen, CFJC.
Hey, thanks for taking my question. I was actually talking to Mayor Robin Smith before this, and we were talking about the Fire Smart protection that they've done here in Logan Lake. But she says that they rely on grant funding, and that money varies, so they don't know from year to year how much money they're getting or how much work they can do. How committed are you guys to implementing a provincial-wide program that comes with annual funding, consistent funding?
Well, I would think that Mayor Smith might have been talking to Chief Lewis of the OK Indian Band, because he had the very same message for me, as do BC Wildfire Service personnel all the time. We have had in 2017, 2018, and now in 2021, 3 of the worst fire seasons in BC history. Our first exposure, significant exposure to interface fires would have been back in 2003 in Kelowna. And this work was about the time that Logan Lake started their work, and we need to make sure that we do have a committed program across the province. Speaking again, my hero, Scott from Lytton, he believes that the fire season starts in January and ends in December. And that means that when we're not having personnel putting out fires, we need to have personnel working with homeowners. They have a responsibility here as well. And again, I'm confident that Logan Lake would support that. We need to make sure that people are incentivized to take protection into their own hands, as well as counting on province-wide programs. Minister Conroy will be bringing forward submissions to the Treasury Board to get the approval for resources. Those programs will be developed. They're well underway. We've got classic examples here of success stories right under our feet today. So we'll put those programs in place, and I'm confident that Budget 2022 will demonstrate to communities that we're on board and we're right behind them.
Follow-up, Chad? Follow-up, Chad?
Yeah, just related to healthcare, as you may know, you've probably read it in the news, that Kamloops is in a bit of a healthcare crisis. 2/3 of the emergency nurses have walked off the job because they're too stressed with COVID and it's a really bad situation. And Kamloops is actually, there's a new surgical tower opening, and there's some real concerns there about staff shortages. What is the province doing? What can the province do to staff up these hospitals, especially our age?
Thank you for the question. We're recruiting all the time, trying to bring more personnel to work in our healthcare system. Urgent primary care centers are emerging across the province to take pressure off ERs. A lot of people present at emergency rooms that could well better be serviced in a clinic, an urgent primary care clinic, to get the services they need. It might not be a GP, it might not be a surgeon, it might be a mental health issue, it may be some other concern. So we're trying to build alternative systems for people to take pressure off our acute care systems. But again, Kamloops in the Interior Health Authority has been the center for assisting people that are addressing COVID symptoms. And it's also been a place where we've been moving long-term care patients because of COVID concerns. So there's a whole bunch of issues that have conspired to create significant problems at Royal Inland, and we're taking steps to address that. The Health Authority is on top of it. Again, we need more people trained to do this work. We're opening spaces in our post-secondary institutions every year, adding more resources to train more people. But we have a labor shortage, not just in healthcare, but in every sector, and that's a result of a population that's not growing to keep pace with the economic needs. So we're focused on that. We talked to the federal government about immigration. We talked to the federal government about making sure that we have the resources to train the next generation of skilled workers, whether they be in healthcare or other endeavors, to meet the needs of our growing population.
Next question is from Hina Alam, CP.
Hi, Premier. I was wondering if you could just tell me a little bit about whether you've visited communities of Monty Lake and Lytton and that were devastated by the fires, and if you haven't, then why not?
Well, I have been to Lytton. I didn't hear the other community. Monty Lake. We flew over
Monty Lake.
We flew over Monty Lake today to observe the impacts of the fire there. This tour, as well as tours I did in late July and late June, are focused on trying to ensure that government has the best understanding possible of the challenges that communities are facing. But at the end of the day, we need to have the backs of frontline workers. We need to have the backs of BC Wildfire Service, Emergency Management BC, who are there to assist people upon evacuation. That's what our job is. My style is to let qualified people do their work. It's been effective for me, and I believe it's been effective for the province.
Hina, do you have a follow-up?
I do. There's been some criticism from some people in Monty Lake that the BC Wildfire Service wasn't there to stop the fire from burning their properties. Yet when they stayed behind, they were criticized. So how do you fault someone who's trying to save their property?
Well, again, I can't walk a mile in their shoes, but I have now, this afternoon, flown over the area, and in every direction, fire was descending upon Monty Lake. And BC Wildfire Service gave the recommendation to Emergency Management BC to evacuate the community in the interest of saving lives. And we did everything we could, based on the briefings I've had, to suppress the fire. But for those who've not yet seen the devastation, it is profound. And we had every resource available put on not just that fire, but dozens of others that were burning simultaneously. This is a challenge of climate change, and we need to adapt and change how we approach these seasons. And that's why we were talking about Fire Smart and the success story that is Logan Lake.
Next question is from Marcella Bernardo, News 1130.
Hi, Premier. I just wanted to start off by asking you again about the vaccine passport and concerns being raised about that. Could you, I know it's early on, it's only been a few days, but how frustrating is it for you to see that some restaurant owners and other businesses are vowing to defy this proof of vaccination measure that really comes down to keeping everybody in this province safe as possible?
Yeah, well, it is just a couple of days since the announcement. I was in a restaurant last night in Vernon talking to the owner who has had his own plan and his own technology being developed to protect his patrons. And again, this is a majority issue. Almost 85% of British Columbians have had a first dose, 75% a second dose. And those British Columbians want to know when they go to a hockey game or the theater or out for a dinner that the people that they're associating with have taken the same steps to protect themselves and their family. These are issues that are supported overwhelmingly in the community, and for those who don't support them, that's regrettable, but I also am advised that since the announcement, the number of people seeking a first dose has gone up significantly, and we're hopeful that that will continue, and we'll have in place certainly the vaccines there for those who want it. The system will be there for as long as we need it. The vaccine passport will be in place until January, and we'll take a look at it again at that time. But I think, again, in my engagements with people, most of them understand that this is uncharted territory. All of it, every step is a new step for us in dealing with a global pandemic, and we're taking measured steps based on advice from business. And if some businesses want to disregard that, then patrons will decide where they want to go. Consumers are supporting this, and I think that's why most businesses are excited about it.
Marcella, do you have a follow-up?
And just expanding on that, when you see how many people are now rushing out to book vaccine appointments, is there a part of you that wishes that you had taken a harder line sooner in this pandemic?
No, I know, like harder line, maybe I'm just responding to how you phrase that, Marcella, but I believe that the vast majority of British Columbians have been on board here to work together collaboratively so we can collectively get out of this. And we made vaccines available. People registered. People waited their turn. I certainly did. Many people did. Others famously chartered planes and flew to the Yukon. So it's been a bizarre situation. Everybody gets that. But other jurisdictions have, had lotteries and promised, chances for new cars. I think British Columbians have been on this program from the beginning. That's why we have such an extraordinary uptake on the vaccines. 3/4 of those over 12 years old, those that are eligible, had 2 doses. So this last push was to protect those and give some comfort to those who had taken steps that so they could know with confidence when they sit down at the Canucks game or they go out to the theater or they're gathering with people in the community as we are right now, that people are doing that confident that their neighbors are taking the same steps to protect themselves. So I don't think we should have been more aggressive or less aggressive. I think the time is right as we go into the new school year, as we start to look at September and all of that entails for families and communities, that if people are rushing to get vaccines to meet the needs of the vaccine card, I think that's good news. I think timing is about right, quite frankly.
Colton Davies, CHNL.
Hi, Premier. Thanks for being here, you and Minister Conroy. You've mentioned a few times about, you've indicated maybe changes to funding and resource modeling for future fire years to come. Just when it comes to government policy, we got off to an early start, way earlier than normal this year with the fire season, with the heat dome, and the fire risk became high and extreme in virtually no time. And, you know, just logistically, people could have had campfires when we had 45-degree days, and, you know, there were no restrictions on things like any backcountry or industrial activity. I'm just curious, is the government looking at any policy changes as well related to wildfire prevention and mitigation after this year?
We are, and I hope I'm complete in my answer to your question. We are going to spend so far, I think it's $500 million on fire fighting in this calendar year, and we're still in August. So there's more to do, and there will be more resources spent. Having said that, I've had 4 years as Premier with absolutely horrific fire seasons. And we made changes through the Abbott-Chapman report. We made amendments to how we budget for each year. We added more resources. But the way we have fought fires in BC historically, going back many, many years, is a notional amount of money in the budget. And if you overspend that, you just find it through contingencies. And I don't believe that we should be putting our communities at risk based on contingencies. And if we have resources at the front end of the year, BC Wildfire Service can retain people to do the work, to assist with Fire Smart, to make sure that they're doing the best we can to create guards and other scenarios around those interface communities. And that's just got to be the way we go forward. So I've seen enough, quite frankly, of how we used to do it, and I know Minister Conroy has as well. And together, we're going to bring forward a submission to government to increase the budget so that we can focus not just on June or July normally to September, but a 12-month-a-year approach to making sure our communities are safe.
Follow-up, Colton?
Thanks for that answer. I also wanted to ask about when it comes to the fire situation. I don't know exactly how long, but for several weeks we had around 36 fires of note in the province, and most obviously in the Kamloops Fire Centre. But there have only been 2 new fires of note since the state of emergency was declared on July 20th, and those broke out on back-to-back days, the Mount Law Fire and the Brook Creek Fire, which merged with the July Mountain Fire. How much of an impact do you think declaring the state of emergency had for public awareness with the fire risk and maybe public behavior?
Well, I can't answer that question. What I can say is that the weather certainly is helping now, but you know, with the briefings I was getting over the past number of weeks showed grave concerns about Armstrong, grave concerns about Logan Lake, and so the state of emergency declaring that did not add any resources that weren't already in place. I think your question was, did that heighten public awareness? Again, I don't think so. I think because of the magnitude of the fires we've had since 2017, people are seized of this right away. As soon as there's a scent of smoke in the air, there's concern, particularly in rural communities, but also in the Lower Mainland as the smoke filters through the valleys into Vancouver. And I'm a Vancouver Islander. There were 2 fires of note on Vancouver Island since the declaration of the state of emergency. So I appreciate that it focuses people's attention, but we had been in a state of emergency for over a year with respect to COVID. And then before that, I have to count the days, but I think I've probably been Premier in a state of emergency more than I've not been. And all I know is that the people of BC are so resilient. They respond, whether you call it whether the order in council has been approved or not. The public goes, what do we need to do to protect each other? And again, Logan Lake is a great place for me to be saying that, because that evidence is here. 18 years of hard work to protect a beautiful community.
We have time for a couple more questions. Lisa Cordasco, Vancouver Sun.
Thank you. On the topic of climate change, when you were away, the UN's International Panel on Climate Change put forth a report that called on governments to spend to speed up their climate action plans and emissions deadlines. And it also called on governments to stop the expansion of oil and gas production and of new pipelines, which is exactly the opposite of what BC is doing now with its LNG program. So will you bring BC's LNG policies in line with what the IPCC is calling for?
Well, we're certainly looking at the report very closely. We have nation-leading climate action programs here in British Columbia, not just carbon pricing, but a range of other initiatives through Clean BC to reduce our emissions, whether they be from transportation, from industry, or from buildings. Those are the three main areas where we have emissions. We're moving to mass timber, which is a blessing for our forest industry, as well as for reduction in GHGs in the housing sector and major construction. We're moving to build more rapid transit all across BC. Electric cars will be mandated by the end of the decade. So we're taking significant steps on a range of areas, and on industrial emissions, we have to do that work as well. But we're reviewing the material that has been brought forward. The plan today, COVID willing, is to participate in the COP conference in Glasgow when the world leaders come together. We are a subnational government, obviously, 5 million souls in British Columbia in a sea of 7 billion people that are having an impact on our climate and our economy right here in British Columbia. So we have a role to play. We have been leading Canada and are held up quite often by those who are champions of climate action. That doesn't mean we're done. That means we have much more work to do. But we have to make sure we're doing it in lockstep with other jurisdictions, and there needs to be an international commitment to address not just issuing a report, but implementing the recommendations there. And that includes not just British Columbians, but all citizens of the world.
Follow up, Lisa. Lisa, do you have a follow-up?
Nope.
Okay. Moving on to Karen Larson, CBC.
Thanks very much. Apologies if you already addressed this, Premier. I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing. Do you expect the current state of emergency related to wildfires to be extended beyond the end of the month? And what factors go into making that decision?
We are always guided by advice from BC Wildfire and Emergency Management BC. When those officials who are professionals that British Columbians rely on to protect us and our lands and the animals upon it, when they give us recommendations, we'll act upon them. That's how we brought the state of emergency into play, and that's how we'll take it off.
Karen, do you have a follow-up?
So, yeah, I just had asked about it being extended beyond the end of the month.
We have not received any advice to change the situation, so it will be in place until Cabinet meets again with advice from Emergency Management BC and the BC Wildfire Service. Again, this is a tried and true method, people who know their business. My approach is always to let those who have the greatest amount of experience and knowledge do the work and make sure that they have the resources to deliver. And that's how we've been proceeding. And when we get the recommendations from officials, we'll take action.
That's all the time we have for questions today. Thank you for joining us.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, guys.